People watch the news, it's all doom and gloom.
It's like asking someone to plant a vineyard in a thunderstorm.
I mean, my jaw dropped. They are ready.
Artificial intelligence can eventually help us to read the room better.
If you disrupt the navigation routes, it means it can no longer feed the world. There was a time that you would never have ambassadors writing on social media directly.
Or doing podcasts.
So we're like changing diplomacy.
Ambassador of Greece to Ukraine, Pantelis Alexandros Dimitrakopoulos, is a seasoned diplomat who has served in London, Istanbul, and the OSCE.
Hi, my name is Natalka Cmoc. I'm the Canadian ambassador to Ukraine, and I have the pleasure of having a conversation with Ambassador Alex Dimitrakopoulos.
You did it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So this is part of a series that's called Off the Record. And the idea here is to have chats with each other the way we do at a coffee shop. Because I don't know about you, but one of the questions I often get at interviews is, what do you do? What do you guys talk about?
Get that along.
And so I'm sure you must have the same. We talked about this already. Yeah. And so it's an opportunity to have these chats. And of course, right now, we're just at the end of two important summits, right? So that's going to be one of the conversations. But before that, I would just like to quickly just sort of frame it in terms of Canada-Greece relationships. So I looked up that there are approximately 300,000 people in Canada who say that they have Greek heritage. I actually expected it to be higher because I had a lot of friends with Greek heritage. So I think that's just the declared number. But the point is that there are a lot of people with Greek background heritage in Canada. We have a lot of souvlaki shops and so on. And I have Ukrainian heritage, so that is also, a group that's really well represented there. And I also learned that my colleague Karine Aslen, who's the Canadian ambassador in Greece, had just signed an MOU about tourism to reinforce tourism between our countries. So I didn't know that we would require that, but I don't know. I think it'd be fun to maybe just start off a little bit about our cultural relationships between Canada and Greece.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Cmoc. Thank you, Natalka. Actually, we know each other.
Yes.
Well, as you already know, I've lived in Canada. I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Montreal. So I happen to know a lot of Greek Canadians myself. These were my, let's say, formative years. So I know that in Parc X, as we used to call it in Montreal, there are many Greek shops indeed, and there are many restaurants, but not only. This is the typical thing that people think about Greek Canadians. But we are quite a few Greeks in Canada. There are slightly more than 300,000, and a very vibrant community, really bringing a lot in Canadian culture, which is a very good mix with Ukrainians as well, and with Italians and all the friends that I made, and you just brought fantastic memories to me. So yes, we need MOUs very often, and we can talk about the MOUs that we do here in the memorandum of understanding that we signed here in Ukraine. They're always important. It's also about setting priorities. And these can be very practical, increasing the number of flights between our two countries, not only flying out of Montreal, but eventually from Alberta or other parts. Now we have this technological ability than 30 years ago when I used to live there. So yes, it is needed, and I'm very happy that our good friend, the ambassador of Canada in Greece, is helping in that direction.
Yes, and you're right. You made a really good point about agreements. And in fact, we're just coming off of the NATO summit. And prior to that was the G7 summit. And of course, at these summits, there's a lot of announcements, but usually that also includes partnerships, cooperations. So I think that we all heard from the news that there was a huge emphasis on the commitments each country is making. And I understand Greece already met the 2%. It's one of of the few countries that has. Canada made its commitment to that 2%, and then we're all watching to see how that unfolds. But it was clear that for Canada, a lot of this was driven about security related to Ukraine and Europe. You are a European country, and I'm wondering to what extent, for you, a lot of these conversations are really critical for Greece, for example. Are they worried about, sort of global security, the position of Ukraine? Because I'll speak Canada first. We are. And so we made a commitment, we made at the G7 a commitment of additional $2 billion for military spending. But the emphasis on a lot of this is really looking at the defense industry, recognizing that Ukraine has changed the defense industry, right? Supply chains are important. Critical minerals are important in all of that. So we're including all of that in our NATO commitment. But again, just bringing it back to your country, in terms of are they worried about global security? Where do they think about what's happening in Ukraine?
Absolutely. We are, just to start off from your first point, we are very much in line with the NATO guideline, as we used to call it. When I used to work for 10 years in NATO, that was a discussion that was ongoing. It's actually been going for a while now. It was a guideline because basically the peace dividend after the end of the Cold War was such that a lot of us, NATO allies, brought down our defense expenditures. Greece didn't have the luxury to do so. And for many years now, even through the very difficult times of our financial crisis, we were above the 2%, actually, where we still are, and we are increasing it. You see, we have a program of modernizing and enhancing our defense capabilities. As we should, because everybody needs to adapt to new realities. Drones comes to mind, but other important capabilities as well. And upgrading them also with the use of new technologies. And because of our, priorities in our immediate vicinity and in the Eastern Mediterranean writ large, which is in the news right now, as you know very well, we are very much concerned. We are very much in line. We have a program called Agenda 2030 about our defense capability, let's say, enhancement, and reorganizing with a very clear strategic and operational plan about this effort. And yes.
So something else that you have talked to me a lot about, and I know less about this, and it was, again, a big topic in the G7, and it was the role artificial intelligence plays and how it's changing everything from industry, but even diplomacy. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, but perhaps you could share a little bit about some of your thoughts on this.
This was something, and it is still something that is really on the top of my mind, because irrespective of where we are, what we do in our job, we always think about how to enhance and how to better our own craft of diplomacy, which has survived centuries. It has survived the advent of the telegraph, when Queen Victoria was saying, I don't need diplomats anymore because now I can just call the king or the emperor so and so directly.
And today it's Signal.
Absolutely. But here we are. The diplomats are still here. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, we should remember that it is a tool, that it is a tool to enhance our human judgment in general, but also our own judgment as diplomats. We have to deal with a lot of data. Humongous amount of data needs to be processed, and things are moving faster anyway. We need to interpret that in a way that we could pass on our message better. So it doesn't replace our judgment, but it enhances it. So we use this as a tool, and we do that. We have started this conversation within our own ministry, as I know other ministries have. I can give you, for example, if you wish, that are helping us in that direction.
Yeah, no, I think it's clearly something that is part of defense as well, because we're also thinking about security much more widely. So AI, if used correctly, is an absolutely phenomenal tool for good. Of course, we're hearing people are more concerned about how it might be misused. A personal annoyance of mine is if somebody takes a photo of me and then makes me look 20 years younger. Like, that actually annoys me. Most people think that they're doing a nice thing for me, and I'm like, stop. That's my face. I'm proud of my age. But that's just a little comment. But I do see that this is a preoccupation. But I'm with you. So I see that it's going to have huge potential in diplomacy. But I actually see that there's a return on reliance of ambassadors, even though 5 years ago we were thinking, oh, will we still need ambassadors because we can communicate in real time. We can just signal somebody, call somebody. Why? Capital to capital, why would we need that? But then you have a situation like in Ukraine where there is a war going on, and it's not easy to travel here. I'm always surprised how few people know that you can't fly into Ukraine or out of Ukraine right now. It actually is like, 16-hour train ride to get here and a 12-hour car ride. So it's a pretty massive undertaking, and then within Ukraine as well. So having people on the ground does make a difference. Having people hear what's going on, having that sort of soft skill approach to diplomacy makes a difference. Do you find that that's your situation?
Absolutely. And as we say, to take it back also to AI and to lead into this conversation, I mean, why are we here? Not only in Ukraine, but as diplomats, wherever we are. We are here to read the room. Artificial intelligence can eventually help us, with the data example I used before, to read the room better, but it still doesn't tell us how to walk into that room with grace. So we need a human touch. Yes. Diplomacy is about human relations. Diplomacy is about translating, explaining our own positions to, again, other people who are here, who have a role to influence their own decision making, and because we are forwarding our national interest, we need to be understood. Therefore, this interpretation can only be human, because we have humans across us when we talk to the decision makers of a country, but we have also other fellow humans when we talk to society and to civil society. So therefore, we are needed here. Our presence is needed here. When we say usually that diplomats open doors. Yes, diplomats open doors, but then they stay in the room.
Yes.
And we are constantly here.
And this is another topic you and I have talked about. So first, we've agreed that AI does not replace ambassadors.
Absolutely not.
Let's hope not. It won't in our lifetime, at least. Okay. So that's good. And I also agree that it's about human relationships, which leads us to another topic that we wanted to talk about, which is we also see that we're now government to government is important, absolutely, but there's a growing role for business. So business to business and so on. And we see that because in the multi-donor platform looking at recovery of Ukraine, there's a big conference going to be occurring in Italy about Reconstruction, and it's primarily businesses that are going to be attending, because there's a huge cost that's going to be to reconstruct Ukraine, in partnership, of course, with Ukraine, but it cannot be done with just donor funding. Donor funding plays a role, but the know-how comes from the private sector. The bids and the amount of projects that are going to occur will involve an entire global perspective here. And I'm seeing that a lot of businesses are like now here or wanting to come here as delegations. And our role as ambassadors is to help facilitate those relationships. Absolutely. And I believe, I don't know how many businesses are coming from Greece, but maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about your role in that.
Very much so, because this is also another phase of diplomacy that people might not know about. And although we are not the commercial and trade agents per se, we are here to again open the door but stay in the room, as we said before, meaning that we don't only want to bring company and convince companies from Canada or Greece to invest here, because it's difficult, and we understand that it's difficult. It's like asking someone to plant a vineyard in a thunderstorm. We understand that. We understand the challenges of coming here, the long ride, the security issues, and everything. But we also need to explain to them that this is an investment that is important, but it's not only that, it's the return. It's the return on investment, maybe, but it's also the return of people who have left. It is, again, always about the people. It is about those who are needed back into their home country, the Ukrainians, the Ukrainian Greeks, eventually the Canadian Ukrainians, to come here. We have a vibrant community here. We have a vibrant Greek community that I know of, and I'm trying to approach, who are going to be the next CEOs, who are going to be the next staff and managers of the companies that are going to return. So I'm very happy to say that we managed to do a very important first step in this direction. Very recently, we had about 12 Greek companies coming here who are big companies about focusing on reconstruction, mainly in the energy sector, but also defense and agriculture, which is very important, of course, as we know. And we're working to enable them, and to it takes a bit of convincing. But it is mostly what I would say explanation. It's about explaining them. And in order to explain them better, we need to bring them here to see. And they're surprised.
Do you find that very often, at least my experience has been that people watch the news, it's all doom and gloom, and that's what makes the news outside of, and then when people come here, they're pleasantly surprised. I was just in Vinica, where they're building 6 industry parks. And they are ready, and my jaw dropped. They are ready. And I was just thinking right away to Canadian businesses how they could really use some of the IT clusters that are happening here. And I find that right across Ukraine, that there is so many opportunities. And I think Ukraine has come to realize that it is very much, for its survival, it needs to be more integrated with Europe and other countries. And we all know that here there was a demography crisis before the war, and the war has only made that worse, including labor shortages. So they are looking at ways to bring people in. So I think some of these large projects will definitely encourage people not just to come here for maybe a few years, but even consider making this their home. And I see more Canadians thinking about moving here. I think the double citizenship is helping. But some of these initiatives are going to be 10, 20 years long. And these consortiums are going to be built. So I think Ukraine is going to see that shift in its population. And another, like if we're going to be breaking myths here, or myth breaking, whatever that show is, I think there's also a lack of understanding that Ukraine already is multicultural. It is multi-denominational. And I'm glad you raised the Greek community, because when I heard the size of the Greek community and the history of Greek history here in Ukraine, I was shocked, in fact.
Indeed, and you're absolutely right about that. And that's why I mentioned the word return before, because there were Greek companies here recently, but there were Greeks in Ukraine forever.
Yes.
Not only in Crimea and then eventually in Mariupol and that area, but in that fantastic multicultural city that is Odessa. We had investments, we had shipbuilding, Greek ships, and you know the importance of the Greek shipping industry for Greece. In Mykolaiv, one of the very famous ship owners in Greece was building his ships in Mykolaiv, and now there's an increased interest in returning, and this is why I put emphasis in returning. And in order to do that, when I have Greek businesses here, I go and show them around Unit City. I go and show them around things that they don't see on television, because of course on television they will see the images that we all see, and I can understand that, and it's important to see those images as well, but it's important to see the other side, that dynamism, the dynamic that is taking shape here with the clusters that you mentioned, with the IT. I've traveled, not as much as you, but I've traveled in this area. I mean, I've gone more south as expected than west, but I've been all the way to Uzhgorod as well, so I'm proud to say that. And I've met met with unfortunately internally displaced people from Mariupol, but who are so quick in wanting to reestablish new routes, as our ancestors have done even in Western Ukraine from such a long time. Lviv, the bell tower was constructed by someone from Crete, and his central building in the city of Lviv was his own when he started a wine business that then expanded, for example. And I bring these examples to explain to the Greeks that the same distance that is separating, let's say, Athens from the Middle East, which is also another important for Greece geographical area, is the same distance between Athens and Odessa.
Yes, I think people don't quite realize some of these distances. And you raised something else I think is really important, is the whole idea of navigation and trade routes. And we're seeing that Ukraine, well, we understand here on the ground, but I think the world is starting to understand that these trade routes is also something we're protecting. The navigation routes is something we're protecting. Ukraine could feed itself, but if you disrupt the navigation routes, it means it can no longer feed the world. And that's why it's a crisis. It's not a crisis for Ukrainians. It's a crisis for the world. Absolutely. And you can take that with many topics, right? They're one of the biggest producers of all kinds of food products. And so, again, it's a navigation. Historically, you raise that. But, the whole route around Black Sea and so on, I mean, these must be issues that are of deep concern. Very much. We need to make sure that international waters are secure, directly for you, but indirectly for Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely, very much. I mean, this was also another factor that, unfortunately, through the war that we are all, living through here, we rediscovered things that we considered absolutely, we took for granted.
Yes.
And then we had the food crisis. And then we also heard and saw and witnessed this incredible drive of the Ukrainian actual government during a time of war to come up with proposals and these initiatives, Grain for Ukraine being one of them, that then encouraged us to come up with other initiatives on our side, the rest of the Europeans, but also us Greeks with our friends in Bulgaria and Romania, in establishing these so-called northern corridors to bring energy back to Ukraine, because energy is Ukraine is an energy producing country, but also we could also assist and help as we need to do now. So this is very good. And Black Sea security was always a topic of discussion, even during my time in NATO. But I have the opportunity now to see exactly what was meant, because the crisis and the war then arrived, and then we do realize in very concrete terms what is happening, and the initiatives that we all take, and together with you and Canada in our alliance, and also in so many other fora like the OECD, for example, are bringing tangible results also that reach the Ukrainian citizen himself. And these lines of communication are very important for trade. They're very important for the energy, and that's our vision as well, to enhance these links. And again, to use another term that I used before, is to rediscover ourselves. It's a return. It's a rediscovery. Ukraine is on the map. Ukraine is back on the map. Our ancestors, hundreds of years ago, they knew exactly what this area was all about, how important it was, what it was doing. We kind of, it withered away a little bit in history, and now it's back at the forefront, at the center of Europe, as it should be.
And I want to end our podcast today on a more personal note, because I don't know if people realize that many of us have actually made personal sacrifices to be here.
Indeed.
And I am here without my husband, who would love to be here with me, and my kids live in Vancouver, so they're far away from me, and we only get to see each other every few months. But you're in the same boat, and there's a lot of us, which means that we will spend more time together. But it is difficult to be without our families. I don't know if you would like to say something about that at all.
Absolutely. absolutely. We are all, like yourself, we are all volunteers here. I know that, and I'm very proud to say that the team of the Greek embassy here is a team of volunteers who have asked to be here. We were not sent here. We asked to be here because we know what matters. And also we are of that generation of diplomats like you and I that want to create and develop not only relations, as we all usually say, but to develop links to create. We are a very creative embassy. We are very much present in the public diplomacy, in our social media and all that. Why am I saying that as an answer to your question? I'm saying that because this is also a way for us to communicate back, also to our families who are not with us, but what we do, which is also the purpose of this fantastic podcast that you have organized here with Kyiv Post, because it matters. It matters that we feel that we're doing something good. This is the courage that we get from being, yes, away from our family and friends. But you know what? They're proud that we're here. And I'm certain that your children are proud of you, and your husband is proud of you, as my wife is,
yes.
and my daughter is as well, and the whole extended family back home, who is also rediscovering, Ukraine, its history, but it is also rediscovering diplomacy, and they finally understand what I do, what this job is about. Now they can see tangible results, and I'm very proud to have done that with a fantastic team of my embassy and your fantastic team, because you also have a great team that I had the pleasure to meet when I came to visit you, and it felt like home since I had lived in Canada as well. But I encourage others also to come here, and I know that we inspire other colleagues also to work differently in other parts of the world that also need to have more diplomacy, and I'm very proud that we demonstrate every day through our own sacrifices, difficulties in traveling and everything, that diplomacy matters, and diplomacy at times of war exists.
I would like to end on a note that you mentioned, and I think you're absolutely right. We are trying to balance the doom and gloom news that makes it out with social media. And I've noticed that almost every ambassador here makes a point of writing truthful, but not always doom and gloom. So it's trying to show the resilience, the stories, what are we seeing, and it's a perspective that is growing. It's unorthodox. There was a time that you would never have ambassadors writing on social media directly.
Or doing podcasts.
So we're like changing diplomacy as we're sitting here. But I think you're right, and it does it reaches a different group of people, and people respond very positively, and they reach out and look at ways to support Ukraine, which is at the end of the day what we all want.
Absolutely.
We want to come up with ways that we're creating opportunities for people to understand Ukraine as it actually is. It's fantastic people, our fantastic teams, as you mentioned, who could have left but stayed because they're committed to Ukraine, and in finding ways that we can all support Ukraine. I think this is a great place to stop. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today, Alex.
Thank you.
I really respect you as a colleague, so I'm really happy you're here talking to me. I'm learning a lot from you, so thank you very much for your time today.
Same here, Natalka. Thank you very much. Thank you.